In conjunction with all of this CHH talk, I know lately what has been the topic of a lot of news media sources has been obviously one of the greats, the legend, the Hall of Famer, Lecrae, when it comes to Christian rap. I don't believe that he was a forefather. I don't think he was I mean, he did pave a lot of ways for certain things, but I don't believe he was the one. He's not the founder. He is not the,
Right.
he may have, I would consider him maybe like a reformist in a sense, because I mean, the guys I was listening to prior to Lecrae could get way more credit for just making this thing blow up, making this thing evolve in the way it has. But the topic at hand is, what is the real reason that people hate Lecrae? I mean, even how you just heard in my connotations of him, it almost like I consider him the MJ or the Kobe of CH. I would consider him like the Kobe or the top 5 of CHH, right? Like the Kobe, the MJ, possibly. And for me, my personal reasons why people hate Lecrae so much is because he's just always sitting at the top. His fame, his mentality, his grind. People get tired. People got tired of the Lakers because they were winning so much. People got tired of the Warriors because it's like, oh, here they go again. It's like eventually you get to this mindset where it's like, all right, people want to see the underdogs win. But with Lecrae just going as hard as he has for so long, people have just categorized him as the GOAT, and they're just like, all right, dude, like you did your thing. You the GOAT, but I'm going to hate on you because one, it's a way of building my platform, right? When people haters, when they hate on things, it helps build their platform, right? And so people come at Lecrae like we seen recently in the news because it helps build their platform. People love the negativity. People love to shine off of other people's names. I mean, people love to come up off that. And as tough as I've been on Lecrae, I don't like that idea of, coming up off his name because, dude, he's just, I mean, I watch his interviews, I watch his YouTubes. The dude is just, he pretty solid. I mean, it ain't no, like he dealt with his stuff. He family man. I mean, the dude is solid and he likes to grind. There's like no reason to hate on the man. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But I think people hate him because he's the GOAT, one of the GOATs. And then two, people hate him because they want to build a name off of him. Mm-hmm. But three, I think we should talk about this because there was a growing interest in how faithful to the things of the Lord Lecrae was. And that's a touchy subject. And I had to pray over this and talk to myself about this. Like, dude, like you can't be hating on some dudes you don't really know, man. Like, and so even me and you have had these conversations. I said to myself, time would tell if the approach that Lecrae was taking would hold up. Time would tell. Like if you're doing the things of the Lord, I mean, it'll come to fruition. It'll be shown. Like the light will expose the darkness. But if you're on dirt, if your heart's not, even if his approach was off, if his heart was in the right place and he honestly believed these things, some things may have crumbled, but I felt like God would have still been lifted up through it because his heart was in the right place. And that's what I feel about Lecrae. Like, even if his approaches don't align with my theology, don't align with my train of thought, don't align with like my massive worldviews, the dude is an educated man. And I think that he takes super logical, pragmatic ways of looking at things, which I do a lot of times too. Like when it comes to my train of thought, like, look, I don't want to argue. I don't want to fight. I don't want to come off divisive. I want to fix the situation at hand. And I don't think fixing the situation at hand is becoming a radical for certain topics. And so, I think, on to that point, I think that he has gotten a lot of slack and people are honestly just concerned with how faithful they believe he is. But I think time has told on him and it has shown that, look, he's a solid dude. He may not be how do I say this? I think he has the spirit of God, but he may not be on the altar crying out, shouting in tongues all over the church, but the dude is coming to church every Sunday. You see what I mean? So I
That's an
think
interesting
people hate
take.
him for an array of different things. I think the three that I summed up are some of the most common ones. And that last point for sure was the one of the more common ones. People are just concerned with his faith. You know what I mean? Like, how you out here claiming to be a Christian rapper when you saying this and that, just almost putting words in the man's mouth. And it's like, all right, let's take a step back, evaluate this man. Let's let time tell. Let's pray for him. Obviously, as Christians, let's pray for this man, and let's let this man, do what he does, and what it's his life at the end of the day.
Right.
I mean, and he, like I say, he may not be speaking in tongues, casting out devils, street preaching, but he's coming to church every Sunday, and I think he's saved and he's got the Spirit of God. So what's your thought? What are your thoughts on him, man? Why do people hate Lecrae so much?
Man, why do people hate Lecrae? There's a lot of reasons to hate him, and I'm not saying valid reasons. So let me get that cleared up, because I don't want nobody to take that sound bite and be like, "There's a lot of reasons to hate the man." But no, one, you gave a good one. He's successful, and he's been
Mhm.
successful. But the thing is, he's been successful doing it. And I don't want to say his way as if he was doing it outside of God's way, but he's been doing it his way pretty much. He owns a
Mhm.
label, which is the biggest in the Christian hip hop space. Got a building in Atlanta, studio in Atlanta that's many artists frequent and come to, and like it's amazing. I mean, he got things that a lot of people don't got, and a lot of people, for some reason, I don't know what it is in our in the space of not just Christian hip hop, but just the church period. But we have this weird anxiety when it comes to people when they make money off of what they do for God or have done for God. Like, it's this weird dynamic where, like, basically, and I don't know if it's a denominational thing, I don't know if it's a misunderstanding of the word, but people have a huge issue whenever you make money, and whenever it seems like you have money, and if you for whatever reason are not as on fire as they want you to be at a given time, or at least come off that way. Because I think my introduction to Lecrae was around when he released, what was the album, not Rebel. I wasn't there during that era, but or was I forgot what the album was called, but Gravity, that's the album. Gravity was when I first learned about Lecrae. So that's right when he was making the shift into, like, I guess a more generalized Christian rap type of approach, where it wasn't as explicit. Whereas the albums before, I mean, the project before that, you got, I Could Play the Background. You got all these songs that are just like anthems, and you had New Shalom. You got Riding with the Top Down, listening to Jesus music. All of this stuff is like
Mhm.
anthems for like the Christian space. But what ended up happening was they were really big anthems in the Reformed Christian space, especially, and there was really a time where like that Reformed doctrine and things was really prevalent, I think, in Christian hip hop. And with that came a lot of expectations, and it really was cultural expectations from a lot of our
Mhm.
white brothers and sisters who are reformed. They had this toxic understanding of the gospel and like God and like his people. And the reason why I don't say it's toxic across the board. I don't think everyone that's reformed is like this, or everyone that is Calvinist is like this. But one of the things that I think was prevalent is you need to suffer for the gospel. And I think one legit criticism that you can have of Lecrae is, and Reach Records, is when they made that shift with their website and they started to kind of water down and dilute their approach. And now when you're at the top, and I'm not
I
criticizing,
think
I don't
so.
think it was wrong for them to do it, but when you are at the top and you've branded yourself up to this point as Reach, the name of the place is called Reach. That means reaching people. Reach Records. And
Yes.
then you are branded as Unashamed. Romans 1,
116.
yeah,
Yep.
exactly. Romans 1:16. When you brand yourself, um when you have lyrics where you saying, you know, Lord, let me die if I don't preach the gospel in a song, and you go from that to I don't want to be called a Christian rapper. Lecrae has
Yeah.
to take responsibility for the fact that if we want to keep it a buck, his PR just wasn't there. if he, but I will give him credit because he made that decision and took a lot of punches and took a lot of he took some shots for it. Because of that, now we can flourish. Like people that who don't necessarily want to be explicit in their approach with it, because there is a place for that. Like if I'm being real, like, you know, when I met you, if we met and it was all gospel, you need to accept the gospel, you need to live the life of Jesus Christ. If that's how you approached me, then we probably wouldn't be friends, or I probably would have never came to church. But no, I met you out we was hooping on the courts, and you took interest. You were reaching out. You're like, hey man, you know, let's kick it. And this is before I was really just living like a perfect, and I'm now still not, but like before I was like good, I still was, you know, cussing and junk and slipping up around whatever, you know, like I was me. I was still me at the time. But my whole point is saying that is a lot of artists, there is some wisdom in not being all like riding with my top down, listening to Jesus music or talking about all these things that like this theological rap. Most people, that goes above their heads if you're not in the space. And so it has no evangelical purposes where you can reach people. There's no evangelism then. You're just preaching to the choir essentially. That's like me preaching to a church full of saved people and saying, you all need to be saved. Well, my hope would be if there are that the vast majority are saved, at least in a church. I'm preaching to the choir. It's only going to be a few that I can reach that aren't saved in that context. But my point is, but the way that it was done, it was like the shock value of it was really huge. So like people didn't really know how to respond to like Lecrae and Reach Records changing up their branding, changing up their marketing, changing up their message in such a drastic watering down way. Regardless of what they, you know, it's a paradigm, of course, but you can't really deny the fact, no one can really deny the fact that they watered it down. It's just a matter of, was it a bad thing that they watered it down or not? And I would say that it wasn't a bad thing that they did it. I think that it was a bad thing in how they did it. It needed to be marketed better, and it needed to be explained what their effort was. And there could be an argument, and I've heard this argument too, where it's like, well, if you put all your cards out there and say, hey, we're trying to reach the world, if you gotta say it all explicitly, then you're probably not going to be able to do it. Like if I have to go out and say, yeah, I water down my music so that non-Christians, this and that, if I have to talk about it a lot, then those people, it's like I'm giving away my secret to those people, and it's not gonna be effective because I'm giving away the bait already. I'm telling you my secrets that in reality, I'm not trying to reach. I'm reaching down to be like, I don't care what nobody say. Like we say this in a church space, but we like, you know, I'm trying to go down to someone else's level. This isn't that, but that comes off the wrong way. It puts us up at a higher level in whatever respect. And I think the heart, and this is where I think we have to realize as the church and I talked about this in my Stop Bashing Lecrae video, but we got to give people grace. We have to understand that not everybody's ministry is our ministry. Some of us don't even have a ministry and got the nerve to tell people what their ministry is, but we all got different ministries, and Lecrae is putting in work in his own right. And it's not perfect. He disclosed on the Restoration album that he had several shortcomings. And he was talking about pill popping and stuff. It was a lot of stuff he was talking about that he fell into as a result of this shift it may not have been as a result of the shift, but going through it and taking the brunt of all the criticism and just not being a perfect person, and like how it affected his marriage and all of that, and how real it was and how he needed to be restored, because there was a lot of bitterness, brokenness, a lot of hurt. And we ain't even talk about the racial aspect of it, where like when he started to talk about black things that were happening in, you know, the black community, like that criticism. So he really was going through it, and he didn't really have many people that can lift him up. But such is the case when you're at the top. You can talk to all the mega church pastors and the people who have huge audience. Like I think about TD Jakes and like how many shots he's taken over the years, but like how you wouldn't even be able to really think about it, like, or guess that like he's probably dealt with as much. Like you don't even hear much about, maybe, I don't know, Jeff, you can clarify that. I'm speaking a little bit, I could speak out of turn because I'm just not in Texas, but like it could be some negative things, but like, man, for the most part, it would appear outside looking in, like I don't see a lot of controversy surrounding TD Jakes. And he does movies, like he was in a movie just that I was just watching with Camille that had some faith ties in it, but like, man, like it was some cussing in it here and there, and like it was some recklessness in it, and he was acting in the movie. It was his movie, I think. But my point is, he gets criticized, but the way he handles it and the way it's all kind of approached, you just kind of take it in, it's not nearly what you would think. What are your thoughts?
So to that comparison, TD Jakes is a wordsmith, so he can, use his words to fight his way out his back. Lecrae is not, like you mentioned. Lecrae,
Oh
he's
yeah,
not a wordsmith. And his publicist or his PR, they weren't either. I think for those that honestly have shown Lecrae grace, like my dude, we talking about the man because he wanted the greats, right? Let's
facts,
not, we're super
facts.
critical of the man because he is one of the greats. I love Lecrae, man. I've been to, I went to a concert. I think it was called Restored or Restoration or one of those names. May have been named Unashamed. I forget what.
Oh, the
All
Unashamed
his
tour.
tours be named Unashamed. Yeah, and I caught him in in Dallas at UTA, and dude, I love Lecrae, man. I mean, I love Reach, I love one. I mean, I love Andy, I love Trip. I think for those that have shown Lecrae grace, they have seen that his heart's in the right place. A lot of us, like myself, you know, we wish, I wish that. I mean, come on, man. Lecrae, you older than me, and you got an album called
Mhm.
Restoration. I get it. We all are in different, walks in our, walk with Christ. But man, dude, like we want to see your family. We want to see your kids grow. Like we want to see you evolve. Like you talking about restoration. You a man that's been chasing God for longer than I have. You know what I mean? And so it's like, that's why I've been a huge proponent of time will tell, because it's like, all right, maybe your approach didn't work. Maybe you can get back right. Like you even have in one of your songs with 1K Few, get back right. I had to get back right. Maybe you can get back right and start and lay the foundation over again and find you some people that love you, that support you. Get back to
Mhm.
family roots, find you an accountability partner, and it not be through a mega church pastor. You know what I mean? And so because I personally think like, dude, you should be out here. Like you should be like, I know you in the streets, like you say, and I know you preaching that gospel, like you say, but man, it's like I just have what I could judge from your fruits. And I feel that, man, you should be like even Paul talks about, we'll move on from milk and we'll start eating from the meat of the word. And I just get to thinking to myself, like, dude, it almost sometimes looks like you're still drinking from milk. And I know you're not, but it just looks that way. And I just would rather you be eating from milk, eating from meat at times, is my own personal thoughts. I hope I'm not coming off too critical of the man. I love Lecrae. I just think that, man, we've seen him for so long. We want to see the evolution. We wanted to see you evolve into, I wanted to see you evolve into something great, and super solid and super thorough. And sometimes I don't feel that way. Those are my personal thoughts. So
Mhm.
I think and part of it is probably because he does interviews. He is out and about. But I don't know if he's as transparent as we want him to be. And that's really what it boils down to. We just
Yeah.
don't know the man, and he may not be as transparent as we want him to be. And that's his prerogative. He
Yep.
does what
I
he
think
wants to
that's
do.
exactly
He's a
it.
grown man who's still with his wife, who raising a family, you know what I mean? Like who's still grinding and taking care of his. We can't hate on that part. But as far as like what we've got to see from Lecrae, man, I just wish we could see just him taking it up a notch,
Yeah.
and helping these young brothers and sisters out here, with the things
Mhm.
of the gospel.
I think Lecrae is very shrewd. Don't ever underestimate how shrewd of an operator he is. Every
Okay.
decision Lecrae makes is very well calculated. Now, granted, like his interview on DJ Vlad, where he kind of hopped around the topic of LGBT, like all that, and like that wasn't a good look for him. I wish he hadn't done for that. Like the whole interview in and of itself wasn't bad, but man, he took a big black eye with that Vlad interview. I don't think just for that one clip alone, like I don't think he handled that right because, and this is the area that we deal with, and we're talks against the grain, and we both dabble with this, like what we were talking about, gender reassignment and like certain topics. Like it's kind of scary in a sense because we want to be real, but we also have that aspect where we know like, okay, being real comes with a cost, and on top of being real coming with a
Mhm.
cost, not coming off as empathetic and not coming off as letting somebody take one of your sound bites and run with it can really hurt you. I'll never forget this, but like Jackie Hill Perry was invited, I think, to go to like speak at Harvard and to talk about I don't even know if it was even pertaining to, because she had released a book called Gay Girl Good God, but there was a lot of backlash.
Mhm.
People were protesting her coming to the church because of her. For some reason they were twisting some of her views to say that she believed in some type of like gender conversion therapy, or like some type of radical type of stuff that they sometimes put on Christians who believe that God can deliver them from, queerness or homosexuality and things like that. So they were interpreting her to say like she was on some gender therapy type stuff or whatever, some reckless. They were really protesting her in a savage way. It was crazy, the backlash that she was getting, all because she was testifying of how God changed her life. And so, but standing firm on it, she didn't have to write the book. She didn't have to do none of that. But the boldness to do it, knowing that it's going to be a blessing to other people. And I think that's what Lecrae runs into, because he's in circles of people like John Legend and so on and so forth, who are probably leaning more left on liberal, who probably would be, you can associate with a lot of the crowds that are for like Joe Biden and other people, and who are for abortion, who are for same-sex marriage, who are for people, gender is fluid, and as far as like, whether you identify yourself as man or woman. So like, because of some of the people that he's connected with in those spaces, and because he has love for those people, they may not all be saved, but he has love for them as far as their humanity. I think it's very hard for him to draw a line and speak respectfully. Like you said, TD Jakes does a great job. And I don't know how TD Jakes the way that he communicates things, like he doesn't have to answer. He won't even answer the question, but he'll say it. He'll speak in such a way about it to where you like, oh man, I never looked at it that way. And you forget that you were asking him a pretty black and white question.
Yeah, I do that because I don't want, and obviously, I mean, I'm no TD Jakes. I have no fame at all, but I mean, just from the little, people that I interact with on a day-to-day basis, I mean, like, we do Bible studies, and recently somebody challenged my stance on waiting, pretty much just, waiting to get married, waiting to have sex until you get married. And they sort of like, and I talked about living with the person and knowing your limits. And, I was challenged on that recently, and I found myself like just wordsmithing my way out of that situation. And I think you got to be a bad dude like TD Jakes has been on the Breakfast Club. I'm sure he's been on Oprah and all the other main channels where they ask him those challenging questions, and he wants that. I mean, he wants all of it.
Yeah, that I love TD Jakes. I don't care what nobody say. People be calling TD fakes and stuff, but I don't care what nobody say.
Dude,
TD
I heard
Jakes
somebody say that he drinks Crown Royal. Like when I moved to Texas is when I heard all the hate come out. I'm like, this is DFW's finest. Like, this is your people.
Hey, for all intents and purposes, I hope that ain't true with the Crown Royal.
Dude, they were pretty adamant about it, bruh. Like, they pulled up some sources and was like, yeah, this is who told me this. They like, that's he funny. Drinks Crown Royal.
Hey, I ain't got no comment on that, man. I ain't got no comment. That's hilarious. Oh, man. But to wrap this up, man, Lecrae, we love you. Much respect. The genre wouldn't be where it's at if we didn't have people like you and what you did with Reach Records. Much love. My only criticism I will say is I think you put yourself in bad situations, and I think you need to control your narrative. And he's doing it. I was going to say, to respond to what you were saying, I think he's doing all the things you mentioned now. Like, he has a YouTube. He's talking about things now. And I still think he's a little too general. He got to firm up a little bit more as far as like honesty, because he's in an era now where ain't nobody trying to, like, TD Jakes is a wordsmith, but Lecrae isn't. You can't get away with this general stuff. You got to be a little bit more upfront. You don't have to be against, and I don't feel like Christians, we need to be known for what we are against, but what we are for. But you got to find a way to tighten up like how you speak to some of these things, and saying, at the very least being like, I do stand on the Bible, and that's, I do believe what the Bible says pertaining to that. But I also have enough context to know that there is other things than just that. So that's never my sole focus, is whether a person has an abortion or not, whether a person is gay or not. That's never my sole focus, because I know I've gotten to know people from that community and I have a lot of respect and love for them. But at the end of the day, I have a lot of respect and love for people who have other things that the Bible talks about as well. It's a lot, man. It's such an easy response like that would get him a long way. But because he doesn't take that approach at times, you be looking like, bro, like,
Right.
it comes off like, where are you at with, are you really at the right place with this in terms of doctrine? And I don't believe that's the case. I just think he just doesn't want to offend.